Hello everyone, welcome to STILT video series. An American passport can get you to many countries in the world, but not all of them. Many countries love Americans to visit without even obtaining a visa. But some countries make it very difficult for Americans to visit, even if they have a valid passport and wait out the visa application process. And others will flat out deny your application for a visa if you come from the United States. NAURU. Many Americans have heard of NAURU, a tiny island in Micronesia. But it definitely makes the list of the most difficult countries for Americans to visit. The State Department reports that you have to obtain your visa before you get to NAURU. There is no way to get one when you arrive. In addition to your visa, you will also have to show proof of hotel bookings or sponsorship from a resident of NAURU, plus travel plus leisure notes that you have to obtain your visa from one of only 12 consulates in the world. And flights go to the island only once in a week. Somalia. Somalia isn't a vacation destination for the faint of heart. The State Department warns Americans against traveling to the country due to the activity of an Al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorist group, Al-Shabaab. USA Today notes that obtaining a Somalian visa is complicated. Some sections of the country issue visas when you arrive, but others require you to get one from a Somali embassy, even though there isn't one in the US. Plus, the State Department warns that Americans traveling to Somalia are subject to local laws. And if you violate one, even unknowingly, you can be expelled or even imprisoned. However, Somalia has no organized system of criminal justice. So locally established courts operate under Somalian custom and Islamic Sharia, a law some of which may be hostile towards foreigners. Sudan. Another country the Department of State really doesn't want you to visit. Sudan. State Department cites risks of terrorism, armed conflict and violent crime. It also warns that the embassy has little ability to help travelers who venture outside the city of Khartoum. Visitors have to register with the Ministry of Interior within 3 days of arrival, and all travelers planning to go beyond Khartoum need to obtain a travel permit. Then you need to register with the police within 24 hours of arriving at a destination outside of Khartoum. Even travelers with proper documentation should expect delays and can be temporarily detained by security forces. You also need a photography permit, but you still run the risk of having your camera equipment seized even if you have the right permit. Turkmenistan. To travel to Turkmenistan, a country on the Caspian Sea in Central Asia, you have to obtain a letter of invitation certified by the government of Turkmenistan, in addition to your visa. And getting the letter doesn't guarantee that you will be granted a visa. Travel plus leisure reports that even with the official letter of invitation prove that you have hired a 24-hour guide and a full itinerary, it's not uncommon to be rejected. Fortunately, there is one way around the problem for Americans who really want to see the country. You can get a 3-day transit visa intended for travelers biking or driving across the country to see the sights and get a taste of the culture. Saudi Arabia. The State Department advises that Americans carefully consider the risks of traveling to Saudi Arabia due to the activity of terrorist groups in the country. The government sometimes issues travel bans against people who then can't leave the country for months or even years. Travel plus leisure reports that the country typically only issues visas for those on business trips or with family in the kingdom, though you might be able to get in with a tour group. And USA Today reports that all travelers, but especially women, should study Saudi customs before embarking on a trip. For instance, women traveling alone won't be allowed into the country unless they are met at the airport by a husband, a sponsor, or a male relative. Iraq. The State Department advises Americans against traveling to Iraq. It warns that Americans traveling in the country are at high risk for kidnapping and terrorist violence, and notes that the embassy has an extremely limited ability to help travelers. If you still want to make the trip, you will need to navigate a lot of red tape. The State Department reports that your passport will need to be valid for 6 months after your travel dates. You will need to apply for a visa through the Embassy of Iraq in Washington, D.C. Once you arrive in Iraq, you'll need to obtain an arrival sticker and residency stamp. You will also have to submit to a blood test for HIV and hepatitis. Bhutan. Bhutan is on the State Department's list of countries without a U.S. embassy or consulate or diplomatic relationships with the United States. That automatically complicates the process of traveling to the country. In fact, all tourists, unless they happen to have an Indian, Bangladeshi or Maldivian passport, have to book their trip through a Bhutanese tour operator or one of those operators' international partners. The country's Tourism Council sets a minimum daily tariff required of all visitors. However, the fee does include accommodations, meals, transportations, the service of guides and porters, and cultural programs. But CNN reports that the restrictive cost proves worth it for many travelers. Iran. Iran is another country without a U.S. embassy or consulate, and without a diplomatic relationship with the United States. And the Trump administration's travel ban on 6 Muslim-majority countries, including Iran, will likely make it even harder for Americans to travel to the country. Reuters reports that U.S. citizens traditionally have to apply for visas to visit Iran, and the government has to approve your entire itinerary. But the Iran Foreign Ministry promised that the country would take proportional and reciprocal action against the U.S. travel ban. Several factors may preclude Americans from obtaining a visa, including small infractions like applying for a visa before receiving a travel authorization number. Plus, American citizens need to have a guide with them at all times while in Iran. Libya. Americans aren't prohibited from visiting Libya. However, the State Department has made it clear that it doesn't think Americans should travel to the North African country. In fact, the U.S. Embassy suspended all embassy operations in Libya in 2014 thanks to violence between Libyan militias. As of 2017, the embassy in Tripoli remains closed. Plus, the State Department has little ability to assist U.S. citizens traveling to Libya, and the U.S. government can't help you get a visa to visit Libya. On top of that, most international airports are closed, and flights in and out of the remaining operational airports are sporadic. Yemen. Yemen is another country that the State Department advises Americans to avoid. The department cites a high security threat level posed by ongoing conflict and terrorist activities as a reason to defer travel to this Arabian country. Another reason to choose a different destination. You'll have a hard time getting to Yemen as an American. World Travel Guide reports that Yemen's embassy in the United States isn't currently issuing visas. Without one, there is no way to visit the country. Even if you did manage to obtain a visa, you would have to be on your best behavior. Visitors who violate Yemeni laws, even unknowingly, can be expelled, arrested, or imprisoned. Eritrea. Eritrea, a country in Northeast Africa, restricts the travel of all foreign nationals, so the Department of State warns that the U.S. Embassy has only a limited ability to provide emergency consular services to U.S. citizens outside Asmara. Eritrea and the United States have strained relations, which makes it difficult even for travelers with dual citizenship to obtain a visa. Travel Plus Leisure reports that the application process often results in unexplained rejections. However, if you do manage to get a visa, Lonely Planet recommends staying within Asmara. In that case, you will need to apply for additional travel permits, unlike the rest of the country, which is subject to strict travel restrictions. Angola, another country that's notoriously difficult for Americans to visit, is Angola. Interestingly enough, you have to start the process of applying for a visa by requesting a letter of invitation. The letter needs to be written in Portuguese, has to be notarized in Angola, and can cost hundreds of dollars in addition to the visa fee. Before you even apply for the visa, you have to have purchased a plane ticket and made a non-refundable hotel reservation. As if that wasn't enough, the State Department reports that immigration and customs officials have detained foreigners without cause and demanded gratuities before allowing them to enter or depart Angola. Central African Republic. The Department of State warns US citizens against traveling to the Central African Republic. This landlocked country has a high potential for intercommunal violence and a fragile security situation. In the event of unrest, airport, land border, and road closures may occur with little or no notice, the State Department warns. The US Embassy in Bangui doesn't provide consular services, so you'll need to contact the embassy in Cameroon instead. Plus, Lonely Planet reports that political problems and a religiously fueled civil war have made the country completely off limits to travelers for safety reasons, with all Western governments warning against any visits here. North Korea. US citizens have long been able to visit North Korea, even if we took an in-depth background check and a long wait to get a visa. But the Trump administration announced plans to prohibit Americans from traveling to the country. The Washington Post notes that it's an unusual move for the State Department to ban travel by US citizens to a foreign country. Though the government routinely issues alerts and warnings about travel to specific countries, it doesn't usually ban travel. Typically, when US citizens find that they can't travel to a foreign country, it's because of a decision by a foreign government, not the State Department. We hope this video has been helpful to you. We provide financial services for immigrants and the underserved. Subscribe to our channel and visit stilt.com for more details.